So, for those of you new to the podcast, my name is Brett Seeley. This is the Mo Better Podcast. I have a very special guest, someone that I've been following for, like 30 years. This guy's old. He's been shooting since I was like 2 years old. Yeah, that's about right.
2015, you were not 2 years old, but
oh, that's messed up. Man, we are not going to talk about age and all those years and things. But the first time I've met Danny Batista, he is he's probably the authority on photography education right now.
people say that, but I never believe them. And I think that's cool to hear, and I appreciate that. But that is one of my goals. That's what I feel like I have to do now with just everything that I'm seeing with the younger photographers coming up these days and age. So it's definitely important to me.
Like, what do you see most? Because you've been around for, like I said, quite a few. If you could count all the years you've been shooting.
Well, I know I started shooting in 2005. And so I'm a Nikon shooter through and through. And the reason I shoot Nikon is because literally I bought that camera from my friend back in college.
Nice.
In 2005 is when that started. It was a D70.
Yeah.
So like little 12 megapixels, small back screen kind of thing.
12 megapixels.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. But either way, that wasn't my career. That was, hey, I wanted to be creative.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm playing with Legos when I'm a kid. Not musically inclined, but I'm building things. Can't draw. But a camera is helping me to create images and really be creative. So that's when that started back then. Not a career, though, at that point.
You cannot draw? Is that what you said?
I cannot draw. That's a big reason that I'm in photography, because I can create scenes with a camera, but I cannot put it down with a pencil. I know what a dog looks like and a lobster looks like, but I cannot put them down on paper.
Wow.
It makes no sense to me.
Do you have any other creative skill sets? Like, can you sing? I know you already said you can't dance, and we saw that part will be on the OnlyFans, just so you know. He tried to twerk,
My
and
naked dancing.
It was a little
I also got no
embarrassing.
ass, Brett, so that's not working either.
Well, you're talking to an Asian here, so you know. For Asians, you have a very nice plump. Hey, how did we get into this conversation? Let's get back into non-OnlyFans talks.
Well, we were talking about creativity. I mean, for me, you did ask me what are the creative things that I do, and I think I love to build. And so for me, I have found that like I have a custom 70cc like 2-stroke Ruckus, Honda Ruckus that I built, stretched, fat tires, that kind of thing. And I don't know where this comes from, man, but it's just this need to want to create and see things be built up and use them, create value for people and make it happen. And so I just find myself building a lot, and photography is a big part of that as well.
Now, have you been full-time since? No, well, you got your camera in 2005. So when did you make the full-time plunge?
Full-time plunge was about 2015. And just to give a little insight on me so people understand like where the full-time career came from, I graduated from college in 2005 with a computer science degree. So I'm like a web developer through and through, front-end web design, programmer, that kind of thing. Which, by the way, I learned from doing MySpace CSS. Like, that gives you a little more idea on, like,
MySpace.
age, right? So,
that's before my time, so I don't understand what this phrase is.
But, like, MySpace helped create that for me. Schooling brought that to me, and then I got a job right out of school, at a corporate American job. USAA. I don't know if you know what USAA is. So I was a programmer at USAA, military insurance company where people are putting in money to their IRA, their 401ks, and they have 2 mortgages, and, you know, they're there for 40 years, and then they retire. I was there for less than a year when I decided that was not for me in that cubicle. And so for me, getting to that point, awesome student, parents are real strict with me, dad's military, like, you're going to get into college, you're going to get a badass job, and like, that's what you're going to do. Right. I did it. And then less than a year later, I'm calling them basically crying, tears in my eyes, like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here. I think I know what I'm going to do. And everybody's disappointed. And so that's that range. That's what it was like then. Yeah. But I knew I had to make a change, man.
Do you remember the face?
It was over the phone, man. So, but I could see their face, like in my, you know what I mean? I could hear their face, and their expression. And I felt the same way because, you know, I wasn't exactly sure where it was going to go, but I knew that being in a cubicle was not creativity for me. Even with a dope team, even with a cool young team, all out of school, all enjoying our lunches, hanging out in this big place where we all got these new careers, making money, seeing our accounts pile up with money every month because we're not spending it on crazy things. Like, it was amazing. But the part that was not amazing was my creativity was stifled. I wasn't building anymore. I wasn't doing my own thing. I wasn't feeling happy. And that wasn't good for me.
How many years did it take from the time that you told your parents that you were no longer going to do what the expectation was? Sure. How long did it take for them to say, we're proud of you?
Well, they've always been supportive. I think that's a big thing that was always really awesome with them. But they were always unsure what the hell I was doing. Right. You know, are you sure you have enough money? Do you need us to help you out? Like, is everything okay? Did you know where you're going next? Like, what's going on? And for me, it was always, I just had like one foot in front of the other going, this is the direction I think I need to go. These are the people I'm going to be with in doing this, whether it was like friends that I met, partners that I met over time, whatever it was. And it just all worked out because I had a vision of just being creative, doing what I wanted to do and making it happen, which led to photography. Photography didn't happen right after I quit that. Photography came up from different pivot points. People don't realize this stuff till people don't even get that far most of the time, right? People who try to do something like this, they might take a step and go, this is too hard. I can't do this anymore. Or, damn, I need a part-time job. I feel like I have to go backwards. This isn't going to work. Let me go back to my full-time job. That was never a thing for me. So for me, it was literally starting to take steps in the direction that I needed to go and finding those pivot points that now I can look back on and talk about and go, hey, this is how it all happened. Right. But I did not know at the time. That wasn't clear.
So your first camera, 2005.
Yep.
Full-time, 2015. You left your corporate job, if you will, the one that was expected of you to take.
Within that year, 2006. So between 2005, 2006, that was over.
Now, how much time were you spending in those 10 years of learning photography? How much time did you spend? Were you obsessed with it, or was it just kind of like a random, let's see what this thing can do?
Well, I'll tell you this. So since I was a programmer, the way that I could make money through freelance was programming. So I didn't jump into photography right away. I had my camera sitting on my counter, but it was never something where I was like, all right, this is the direction I can go now. I did know something in programming. I was hired for doing that stuff. So I decided to go that route. And I knew I could do that, so I started freelancing that. That was my first business. Out of this corporate American job, not sure how I was going to make it happen, freelancing and doing that. And getting clients just based on people that I either worked with in the past in that corporate American job, which was an insight that I had that other people didn't, and then finding them through networking and other kind of organizations in the city I was in then, which was San Antonio, Texas, by the way. Really small, sleepy town, mom and pop, not a creative industry there.
San Antonio is an interesting town. When I went through boot camp, I stayed down there. I was in tech school in San Antonio as well. And I went down the Riverwalk. And I shit you not, I saw a little kid being walked down the street with their mom with a tattoo. I'm not talking about like a 10-year-old kid. I'm talking about like an infant, like 5 years old being walked down the street. And I'm like, that's got to be a sticker. I looked and I'm like, oh no, that's not a sticker.
And tattoos.
And I'm like, that child is a gangster.
But San Antonio is a little different, man. Very Mexican, Tex-Mex. Really stuck on that. Actually, they have no ability to like light Caribbean food, which I noticed, which I hadn't. San Antonio is so stuck on like bean burritos, cheese tacos, that kind of thing. That like if plantains show up, they don't know what to do with them. Like
plantains are nasty. Man.
Whoa.
Let's talk about mofongo. The worst food on the entire planet is mofongo. Is Dominican, is that a mofongo place too?
The Dominicans love mofongo, man.
Oh my gosh. And I say this just because the guy that's behind the cameras is Puerto Rican, and so that's for him.
Okay, you make me turn the mic. Don't make me stop this recording.
For people who don't know what mofongo is, it's also a brother to mangu. And if you don't know what mangu is like mashed potatoes of boiled plantains. And then mofongo is the boiled plantains built up into a nice little volcano, fried, and then has like juices and any kind of meats you want on it. And it's bomb, by the way.
It's I've gone to Puerto Rico once. One thing I can say about Puerto Ricans is they don't like red lights. They don't use red lights. They don't use traffic signs. I know this is very, I'm stereotyping an entire ethnicity.
The entire world except the United States, I think, man, and maybe Canada.
Yeah, well, I was going to go in a different category. All right, so would you say that you had all the business skills from college, or is that something that you learned as you went on?
That's a good question, because that's stuff that's obviously learned, I think, as time goes on. Nobody's teaching me that in school.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time. Nobody teaches me how to write a check in school. We don't use checks anymore, but like that's the idea, right? Are you really learning the stuff that's going to help you in business in school? No. And going to corporate America, you're an employee.
Yeah.
There's nothing there except, hey, you could be rich one day if you keep donating to your 401k. You could be rich one day if you keep putting money in your IRA, right? And they preach that a lot. You want to be a millionaire when you retire? Make sure you keep putting this money in. We're gonna also put our money in. We're gonna 50%. We'll keep adding to it, and one day you have a lot of money you can take out and pay taxes on. Do your thing. So that business sense, I think, probably for me, came from just my bringing up. My dad being in the military, being real structured, making sure things are getting done, figuring out, problem solving everything, right? If something's going on that you can't get right, or you can't figure out, whether it was homework, whether it was building stuff with my Legos, whether it was anything in class, whether it was getting a girlfriend, like whatever it was, you're problem solving, communicating, figuring out ways to do that. And that all, I think, was a huge thing for me when it came down to business that I think a lot of people don't have.
It's fascinating that you say that because I see a lot of people. I've got a YouTube channel where I talk to newer photographers, and the amount of questions, and I'm sure you get the same thing. The amount of questions that you get from people where the answer is it's within 5 steps, you know, and it's if you look at it and acknowledge that there's an issue, look at what might the problems might be. It's very 1, 2, 3, 4, and you know it doesn't have to be in that same that same order, but it's very it's problem solving. And there's so many people that struggle because they just hit a concrete wall. And I've always been curious: is that something that can be taught on how to troubleshoot, or is that because some people can code? I can't. There are certain people that can slam dunk a basketball. I'm almost there. Yeah, almost. 2 feet away.
I can get stuffed on the rim, man. I can get the ball right against the rim, but I'm not putting it in. But yeah, no. To answer your question, I don't know if that's something that can be taught. I try my hardest to teach people how to see and read between these lines and think about these things. Again, I think that came from, and I keep bringing up Legos, man, because I really feel like that was like a big part of my childhood where I am trying to create something that I have in my head that I'm looking at in my hands, and I'm piecing together and figuring out, no, that's not going to work. This is going to work. That's going to work. And I'm pretty sure that when I'm on a photo shoot, because that's what I do now, I am investigating the scene in split seconds. I'm seeing what's going on with the model in split seconds. I'm seeing what the client is probably about to say, and I'm organizing that and going, oh, let me just do this, and boom, we're on our move. Where I think most people might be like, not noticing what's happening here, not noticing what's happening there, not seeing how these shadows are interacting, when that cloud is about to come overhead. All these kinds of things are literally things I'm thinking in split seconds. And a lot of the people that I teach, because I do a lot of private one-to-ones, I literally fly to people, teach them in person. And a lot of times when I show up, I'm thrown off by how not quick they are with seeing the things that are happening. I have to slow myself down a little bit. And again, man, I don't know if that's just year after year of my whole life, like problem solving and coming up with these solutions, or if the business side has taught me that, but I'm sure it's a whole collective of things because you learn things along the way and you start to see how you need to be for certain clients or certain personalities or certain people in front of the camera, whatever it is, and you start to figure these out on your own.
Right.
But I think it's over time I've learned that, and I've just built it up over so many years that it seems like I just have it all handled at that split moment. But I've learned it, I'm sure.
You know, one thing that I wish, if I were a programmer, I would want to program an app where it's almost like learning a new language. You know, Duolingo. It's teaches you the small, tiny pieces every single day.
Sure.
And I'm fascinated, and I'm really intrigued. I'm curious if you can rewire that kind of brain, because the thought of coding a website for me is like, no, I'd rather do taxes. You know, that does not sound fun. But that's because I know I know what it looks like on the end, and I don't have the mental capacity, the bandwidth to try to learn all of these small steps that need to be taught. But if it were dumbed down, and I hate to use the word dumb down, but if you dumb it down and then say, now this goes here. Reason why it goes here is because it doesn't do anything if it goes there. Okay, I get that. That's basic. Well, that's coding 101. I mean, coding 101.
Sure.
You know what I mean? To have vision with photography, because when you think about all those different things, there's 100 things that go on in your head.
Which, by the way, I mentioned like 5 out of the 100 that are happening at any one time.
And to go into it without having an understanding of those 100, one, I'd be like, I have to learn 100 things? Holy shit. Right. I just want to take a picture. You know, so it could be overwhelming for someone brand new.
It is.
But when you break it down, and then it's like that epiphany, like, holy cow, it's something so basic. And I'm sure you have the same thing. I have epiphanies all the time where it's photography 101 moments. And that's what I love about photography.
Yep.
For example, I was shooting, I dread natural light. I hate natural light. I abhor natural light. I dread natural. What's another word I can say? What's another?
I got no more similes for you, man, but those are pretty good. I get the
Pienso que natural light is caca. You know what I mean? I'm trying to using other ethnicities.
So the rest of our group here can understand? Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Exactamente. But I was shooting a model, and I looked, and I'm like, man, the sky is so dramatic. And it's in the middle of the day, and I didn't have strobes because the place I was shooting, you can't have strobes.
Sure.
And I wanted to push myself outside my comfort limits. And it just so happened that something happened where there were dramatic clouds there, and the sun was behind, and I took a picture with the sun behind me, lighting the subject, and it just so happened that the clouds were really dramatic. I'm like, holy shit. hey, everybody, hey,
I did it.
Hey, I'm like, I was celebrating, and I'm like, I was so excited. I'm like, that's natural light 101. I mean, because I was always trying to shoot natural light at a sunset. And so, strobes, sunset, that's how you get the clouds. My strobe brain, could see that easily with natural light, the smallest thing. And somebody in second grade with a camera would say, you're a dumbass. That's common sense. We learned that before we even turn on the camera, right?
Well, I would say this, and I'm the same as you. I've hated natural light. I've hated natural light since I started. For me, photography was always strobe. I learned to shoot when I started actually getting into this as a career with automotive and real estate photography. So I'm shooting luxury real estate and automotive. And I had already, up to this point, I've been using Photoshop since I was 15, right? So that's 1999. I've been in Photoshop. Every single day, I've opened up Photoshop since 1999 for some reason. Obviously, I better be good at it at this point in time. But because of Photoshop and because of shooting with strobe on these particular industries, it's multiple exposures. So I'm exposing a couch, I'm exposing a ceiling, I'm exposing a wall, I'm popping flashes on all of these. And then I get to integrate what I've already learned in Photoshop to start masking things together. So this is part of that building process, again, that Lego analogy I'm talking about. I'm building these images up into the most beautiful image it could possibly be at that point in time without limiting myself to natural light. Because I had done that for so many years at the start of my career, the second I had to start thinking about natural light, which was, by the way, man, I didn't start thinking about natural light till like 6 years in. And I was terrified to not have my strobe with me because I knew how limitless I was when I could put that light anywhere I want and create that light with my second light being the sun or whatever I'm doing. I knew I could create the exact picture I wanted with a strobe. And so that was super, I relate to you totally on that because that was terrifying to me. The way I got out of that and pushed past my comfort zone is I wasn't able to bring my strobe somewhere one time. I think I was going to like Mexico or something. I didn't want them to like tax me on it when I got off at the airport. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to see what I can do. And now I'm investigating shadows, man. Now I'm looking at the time of day. Now I'm like seeing how I'm angling her face exactly where that sun is going to be. Now I'm doing all kinds of things that I never had to do before because I could take my light, put it at 30, 45 degrees, go boom, this is where I want you to look at. We're going to stand over here. Cool. Let me change my power. Done. And everybody's wondering like how I'm creating these shots perfectly all the time. And it's because I could create my own light. So I totally relate with that, man. I totally relate with that. The thing you mentioned about like this 101 process of like you saw this thing you should know in second grade if you picked up a camera. I have found over teaching all these people, all these photographers, intermediate, beginner, advanced, is that you got to have a workflow. You got to have something that you at least follow vaguely when you go into this shoot, if we're talking about models or shooting with a human being, that allow you to have really the majority of your shots are wins. And some of that includes using a certain distance focal length when you first start out. That includes leaning a person on an object versus just having them stand in the middle of an alleyway while you have a 200 millimeter lens pointed at them and they've never posed in their entire life. And now what are they going to do? This. And that's not what I want. That's not how I shoot.
That's a hot pose. Just, that's pretty sexy.
That's posing 101. But that's what happens all the time. So seeing these things and having these things happen to me in the beginning over and over again allowed me to go, wait a second, cancel that out, move that out. This is where I'm going to start. This is where I'm going to generally do this. This is how they're going to get comfortable. This is the time frame I'm going to shoot before they start to feel good about what they're doing. Now we can move them across from the wall. Now we can include their full body. Like there's a workflow that I go through now that I think gives me a lot of wins and doesn't make each photo shoot completely hard to die, because you already don't know what's going to happen when you jump into a shoot. Lots of things can happen. But if I can start to like dictate certain things and then allow the freedom to flow from there, that's what I found has been a really good problem solving technique and workflow for the clients that I work with. And then also in teaching people that, so they don't have to think so much about the 100 things that we're thinking about in a split second. And I find that it works, man. I find that these people are able to calm down, focus in on one specific thing. Yeah, they're still thinking about the exposure triangle in certain settings and whatever else. But also even limiting that down to certain things helps them to go, oh, now all I have to do is just adjust my shutter speed to determine my ambient. Like things like that start popping up. Some of you may not know what I'm talking about, but
it's like you're listening to all my conversations I have, because that's something that is repeatedly said over and over and over. And it's great to hear you say that too, because then it kind of makes it to where it breaks down the complexity of photography down to some core basic elements.
Absolutely.
And as long as you do these core things, you're always going to grow. You're always going to get better. You're always going to improve and develop, but it's based on the same basics. And I think the problem today is so many people, because photography is easier today because of the gear, you know, technology has been amazing. The benchmark or the starting point now for the average photographer is way better than what it used to be 10, 15 years ago.
Sure.
You know, I was telling someone in my group that when I was learning Photoshop, when I first started, I learned at Barnes and Nobles. I learned Photoshop by reading a book.
The Adobe Photoshop magazines and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah, digital magazines, yeah.
And I was cheap. I didn't want to buy it because it's a magazine or it's a book. You know, it's 20
That's the
bucks.
best way.
And so I would take a notepad and I would write notes, and then I'd go home to the computer, and then I would forget, you know, and then I would get stuck. And now YouTube videos, I mean, you can watch on your phone. There's AI programs to do photography is so, I don't want to say simple, but it does make it to where people, they get further ahead
Facts.
without learning the steps. And so then, you know, it's almost like if there were a model or a photographer that just started and was assisting, you know, an established photographer,
Yes.
and then they shot, you know, some shoots at all these photo shoots, and they shot only the best models. You know, they would think that they're amazing, which, you know, they could get amazing shots from amazing models. But then put a client who is their first shoot, they would fall because they don't know the basics. They don't know how to direct someone that doesn't know how to pose. And it's key to go through all those shitty moments.
Well, let me say this. So you brought up the idea of how you learned Photoshop. I think it's really unique for me to tell people this, because if a lot of people listening to this are young enough to not be around when YouTube wasn't around.
Yeah.
I learned Photoshop from tutorial websites that had GIFs with little arrows moving and pointing to like a menu icon.
Oh, man.
We're talking about making like lightning come out of 3D text, or
Right.
like maybe selecting a tree or swapping out a sky. That was popular in 1999 as well. But I was learning from going to these websites and using my old Hewlett-Packard printer and printing off these tutorials with these little screenshots. These are screenshots, y'all. There's no video. We're printing off these screenshots. I'm putting them in a 3-ring Trapper Keeper binder with
Right.
like organizational tabs to tell me this is all about text, this is going to be about this. And every day I'm going through this stuff, crossing off step 1 and, you know, doing these things. So there's definitely more accessible. There's definitely a lot of ways that you can improve a lot quicker now, I think. Especially with somebody walking you through it. I'm doing it in air quotes there because you're not necessarily having somebody next to you and they're teaching you a specific step, a group of steps, which, as you know, in Photoshop, there's a bunch of ways to skin a cat every time. There's a lot of problem solving with Photoshop. But that's how I learned that. And so it's taken a lot of time. And a lot of times, I don't think people realize this, they might look at somebody like you and me or just anybody who's established in what they do and go, damn, how are you so good at this already? And think that I like started a month ago or 2 months ago, or whatever. And it's been a decade.
Yeah.
It's been longer. It's been 2.5 decades for Photoshop. And I still learn something new every week.
Yeah.
Always something new popping up. Obviously, new tools are coming out and whatever else, but a lot of the same tools are still there if we're talking about Photoshop. Same thing with the camera. I'm always learning something new every time I press that button. Situations are always different that you have to learn something new.
I wanted to add too, the fact that we have YouTube so accessible kind of makes people think, oh, I'm just gonna watch this video once and I'm gonna learn it.
Right.
And I'm more of a traditional person. I like things in paper, physical. I'm not a YouTube learner, you know? So I guess it's a misconception that if you just watch the video once, you're gonna learn the skill. You know, you just gotta practice it and read it over and over. Maybe watch the video a couple times till you really get it.
Well, the thing is, this is a point that I don't think you made. Watching the video 17 times ain't gonna teach you nothing. You need to do it 17 different times. And you need to experience it in different fashions through different types of photos, if we're talking photography, that allow you to now take that one solution you found out and see how to apply that in different problems that are happening across different images, right? One thing that, and I know, Brett, you're about to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but one thing that you had mentioned earlier reminded me of this thing called Master of Light. And it was a Nikon group or something, or like a Nikon, not a Nikon group, but it's the professionals that they had brought in for a certain like group page on Nikon. Like, these are the masters of light for nature, for lifestyle, for food, for whatever it is. And they were interviews. And so one of the ladies, an older lady who shot, I believe, a lot of like ranch style horses, and, you know, in the morning sunlight creeping through the fog in the back of like a jungle, forest or trees in these ranches she was shooting. She was being interviewed about what it's like to be a master of light. And one of the things that always stuck out to me was she said that I don't like to call myself a master. Every single time I press my shutter, I do learn something new. Every single day I do wake up, the light is extremely different. Even if I'm shooting in the same place I've shot in for years, something is always going to be different. Some action with who is in front of my camera, something. And so I'm always having to diagnose and look at those things and readjust all the knowledge that I've learned up to this point in time when I'm about to press that shutter and react in a way that makes me a master of knowing and experiencing all these things, but I can never truly be called a master. I'm always learning something, and everything's always different. And that always stuck out to me. I didn't like put that up on my mirror and like, you know, read that every morning, but that is something that from a humble standpoint, I took in, really felt in my heart. And I feel like that all the time. When I'm teaching somebody, I'm going, hey, you're going to grow. We're going to grow together. This is what it's going to take. Things are always going to be different, but let me show you some of these steps that should guide you and lead you to the next point, that when you see this again or something similar to it, you can take this knowledge and then apply something that you're seeing or something that you learned, and your experiences will continue to grow. So I see that all the time, literally every week.
I think there's a generational difference. You know, I think of my dad had this big jar that he would put all of his loose change in. And a lot of times it's a bunch of pennies, you know. And this jar, it was a big fucking jar. It had so many coins in it. But he was in the mindset of, because he was military as well, his mindset was every day is routine. It was part of his workflow to when he pulled stuff out of his pocket, he tossed the loose change in. I think nowadays people look at the jar and they say, when is my jar going to be full? How come my jar is not full yet? How come I don't have as many jar or coins in my jar as that jar? And they only look at they look at something totally different. They don't build the mentality of every single day. It's irrelevant how much you're going to put in at the end of the day. It's a habit. It's a routine. I tell the people in the group, you know, when you're driving, just look and pick a spot. It doesn't mean that you're going to shoot in a spot, but look and where is the sun? Where are the shadows? How would you shoot it? Think what settings. And I'm not a technical guy. You know, if you talk about page 17 of the owner's manual, I will tell you it's a blank page because I don't know, you know. I can't tell you the difference between that focus setting and that one. So you're way more technical because of the programming background, I'm sure. But you're always looking everywhere you go just to keep that muscle flexed a little bit, you know? And like I said, if you never shoot there, great. It's irrelevant. It's putting a penny in the jar, you know, because you're going to learn something. And then one day you're going to say, oh, similar lighting to that one spot. Let me try to take the shot. And holy shit, I was way off. Okay, good. Fail. Now you're going to be better next time. And that's, I think people, they have blinders on every single day. They don't put any effort, and they don't realize if you were to count how many times photography popped up into your head on any given day, I'm sure there'd be a lot of pennies. You know, analogy for thoughts. If you ask the typical person nowadays, well, let me get my camera then. So that's the first penny that you spent, and it's 9 o'clock. So you're not thinking about what you claim you want to know about. And there's, whether it's called obsession, you know,
Passion.
Maybe it's obsession. Passion, I think, is a better word for it.
I think for me, I think it is a passion. It came from, by the way, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but photography came to me because of all the websites I was building through that freelancing career that I was building for myself before photography was even in my head. I still had my camera sitting over there. But photography was required to finish out the websites. So I needed to, and I was the only one with a camera.
Right.
So guess who was shooting the photos? Guess who was forced to shoot the photos?
Oh, wow.
Right? So now I'm going, okay, well, what do I need? I need this umbrella. I need this little speed light. I need to get some better light on these subjects. And now I'm shooting granola bars coming out of mom and pop's little oven. Now I'm shooting, you know, anything that comes along for these specific small business websites that we're building. Right. So that it was a necessity at that point in time. And then obviously learning that, you know, this networking led to other photography jobs. But one of the things you mentioned reminded me of something that I post a lot on my stories on Instagram, and it's that inspo is everywhere. And so I being this strobe photographer and, you know, fighting for strobists everywhere, I see a lot of work that looks very natural. So a lot of times I'm on planes and I'm walking through the corridor to get onto the plane, and they have a lot of different advertisements. Like if you get on Delta, they show you all these different amazing experiences these couples are having on their planes, right? Reading their iPads next to a beautiful glowy window. And it's always sunset. It's always beautiful light coming into the window. They're sleeping in first class and lights hitting their face perfectly. And a lot of people that aren't photographers, they don't look at this and go, well, what kind of light is creating that? How do I see any catch lights in their eyes, or whatever's happening? They look at that and go, oh, I would love to be sleeping in first class like that. That's probably what it's like. And I'm sitting there going, man, that has to be an optical snoop, man. That is not a real plane. They have half this plane in this warehouse on a cyc wall, and they have 18 lights put in through all these back windows, and these are lower power than the one that's on the subject. You can see how it's all dimming as it goes back into the back of the cabin. And I'm seeing all that as I have my little carry-on walking onto the plane. And I always post that because I want people to do what you're trying to have people do when they're driving down the street and they're seeing these different lighting scenarios. I'm having them look at this and go, look, this is everywhere, especially if I see Photoshop related stuff where I go, look, don't ever tell me that because I use Photoshop on my images for whatever it is, retouching, editing, compositing, adding cool things in, changing out the entire scene if I want to, including more drapes coming off this pregnant female, that it's not photography anymore. Yeah. You don't know the setup that I'm doing here. You don't know the communication I have with this client. You don't know what this client is envisioning in their head and the value that they're lending to me that they know I can provide them in all the techniques that I've learned and grown on over all these years, right? All these little stepping stones of things that I've just done either out of habit, out of passion, out of inspiration, out of wanting to learn, out of wanting to grow. And it all comes down to that one point where I go, yes, I can do that. This is how I think I can do it. Let's try to figure it out together. Does this work for you? Oh yeah, that's awesome, Danny. How? But I don't see, this. Don't worry, we're going to add that in post because I have this idea for this. Again, all this, if anybody's listening to this, should sound like problem solving to you. And growing through all of that and stacking all this knowledge on top of this, getting inspired by everything around me, right? I think that's where that passion comes from. Is I'm always just interested in creating something and growing something and building something from what I'm seeing around me.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that because I think a lot of creatives, when I first started, there were some bulletin board groups. God, that's such an old word. I
feel like I remember what you're talking about. That brought up some like deep suited memory in my head.
You go in and you can leave comments and people can. Sure. It's almost like Facebook before Facebook,
I think colleges use that a lot.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Now I feel a little bit not as young. But I would go in and you would see a lot of really amazing, talented people. But newbies would ask questions. And I asked some of the same stupid questions as well. Stupid with the way I look at it. But there are newbie questions, and a lot of the old timers would say, you're dumb. You should know that, or open up the owner's manual, or read a book, or get off your, and I get that. Partially I understand because part of it is before you ask me a question, come with me with what you tried first, and then we'll break it down. Sure. But don't just look for the easy answer. So I get part of that. But there's a lot of people that get stuck in their ways, and they wish that they could still shoot the same way they shot 20 years ago. And one thing that I've loved about your work is it's constantly evolving. And, when you mentioned that, when you use Photoshop and when you elongate the drapes or the dress, I know a lot of people, and maybe when I first started, in my newer years, I probably had the same mindset of like, if you use Photoshop too much, that's not photography. Because when I first started, I went through my immature phase, I was an asshole when I first started. Yeah, shut up. Don't say I'm still an asshole now.
He still is.
Shut it.
He still is.
But, in the beginning, some people like myself, they were very overly opinionated on certain things. The way that we feel things are, that's the way things should be, and that's, well, anyway. A lot of people, they have that same mindset about AI now. They think that AI is not photography. In fact, I saw a post from one of my buddies, Pratik. Pratik, yeah. Yep. Amazing, just entrepreneur. That dude is insane. Super nice guy. But he had this post about, it was a fine arts contest winner or something. And the images that were submitted for this contest, it won $3,000. It was a fine arts photography contest, whatever. And the debate is on whether or not AI was used for that image. So that's a separate conversation, but to kind of relate that to what you do, troubleshooting and embracing new advances in technology to provide value for the client. And I think that's the biggest thing that people miss, because it's providing something that the client wants or needs or, didn't know they wanted, and now they are 10 times more satisfied or happy. Now they're going to be a return client, which is a key thing. And a lot of creatives, I think they think on behalf of the idea of being a creative.
An artist.
That just drives me crazy. That's a whole nother podcast. Well, yeah.
But it is true. I mean, what you're saying, I think a lot of people are so focused on the artistry of it and doing what they know. And besides thinking about, and especially for photography, there's somebody else in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Right. This person has either hired you or is confident in your abilities to create something that they think they will look good in, whether it's simply vanity for vanity's sake, whether it's because they're doing a competition and they need to have photos ready for that, whether it's they just have this idea in their head that they've never been able to find somebody who could do it.
Right.
Right. And a lot of artists are so stuck in that realm or that traditional idea of being an artist, I think, that it really limits them from remembering that this is about providing value to somebody that's trusting you with that camera in your hand. And it's a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other tools you can use to maybe build upon that after you shoot that photo. But you got to step outside of yourself for a second here and realize whether they're a client, a collaboration, which I hate the word collaboration, by the way, whether it's something you're just working as a teammate with somebody else to create these amazing images, you're creating value for someone else. You're using that tool to an advantage to help create an end result. And if you have other tools that you can use with that, whether that's AI, Photoshop, whatever else, I mean, I've been battling that idea for so long and helping people to understand that it doesn't have to be something scary.
Yeah. Do you have a word of advice? Like you've had tons of tons of students, a ton of one-on-ones. Is there something that you find yourself repeating over and over to a vast majority of the people that you mentor, or anything that's a little bit more personal to you? What would you hope that the next generation of creative embraces?
Well, one thing I would say, man, and it doesn't necessarily come up every time, but I get little glimpses of it every now and then, whether it's somebody I've taught and they fall off and decide that photography is not for them, which I have had happen and I've always been confused by. And I always felt like, did I do my job right? But there's all kinds of things happening with people. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. One thing that I've always thought is that most individuals don't realize how much work it takes to build a career around this. A lot of people either are starting as a hobby, just got their camera, or have dabbled in like one page shoot that I've taught, and they want to start figuring out how they can take this and build upon it so it can become their full-time job.
Right.
And I think some things that I run into a lot are laziness, and from the point of view of not knowing it takes a lot of work. Whether you have a full-time job and you come home late at night before you fall asleep, you are nonstop working on that. Whether you are using your weekends to actually build upon something that can then grow for you and be your full-time career, I find a lot of laziness in there. And so I try to instill this idea that, look, it's going to take a lot of time. Here's how long it took me to grow into this. Let me be your example so you can understand. It doesn't just pop up and randomly show up. I actually related a lot to like a music career. A lot of times you will see a music artist come up with this badass song that's amazing single, and it's like, boom, rise to the top. And then a lot of what you see from the audience is, man, this guy came out of nowhere. Guarantee you that guy's been sitting in his basement, smoking his joints, doing whatever it is, making money on the side, hustling CDs, selling out MP3s, doing whatever he can, building up this SoundCloud, pushing that out across his Instagram, figuring out funnels, whatever it is. That takes a lot of work. Yeah. And every single day they're doing that stuff. And one day the song pops off, and one day you hear it, and one day you go, damn, this guy's badass. And he came out of nowhere. And for 10, 15 years prior, this dude's been, or female has been, working, busting their ass doing this stuff. And when you find out this later on through interviews on Vogue or GQ or whatever else, and music magazines, Rolling Stone, and you go, damn, I didn't realize the lifestyle they had. Then they start singing about that lifestyle, and you go, damn, okay, I can relate to this. Yeah. And then do you actually take that though, and then go, okay, I have this passion, I have this inspiration, I think I can do this too? Or do you take that and then become just lazy and go, this is too much hard work? And I think I find a lot of people do that. That's the mass majority.
I would say the vast majority for sure. It's amazing how many people will look at somebody else who has something that they want, and they automatically react with envy or jealousy or just this perception that the other person must have a trust fund or something. You know, and a lot. I talk to so many entrepreneurs, and I talk to a lot of successful people, and almost in every case, there's we didn't know if we could feed ourselves. You know, we lived off of ramen packets, you know. If I think of all the people that I know today that are doing extremely big things, they all have the same story where they hit almost rock bottom. And then once you have nothing to lose, then that's when you put the grits to the grind, or some
the grits phrase. To the grind. That sounds tasty.
Yeah, I think now you're making me hungry.
Something about a grindstone. We don't need to know the exact phrase, but I understand what you're talking about. I think people do too.
And it's that hustle. And I think people that get comfortable just kind of going on cruise control, because when you're on cruise control, you don't have everything you want, but you're moving forward and there's progress. And it's kind of like put money into your Roth IRA. You know, let's put a little bit into savings, put a little bit in savings, and then in 20 years you can retire. And I'm like, man, I don't want to wait 20 years before I can live the lifestyle of a retiree. Because when I'm 60, which is many years away, asshole, when I turn into that retirement age, you know, I see with my parents, they were not able to travel, you know. So when you get to a certain age, your body says, it's nice that your mind wants to do that, but let's face reality. Your body's tired. And I'm like, let's act like we're retired now. Let's work hard, do what we love to do. And if you're working, air quotes, while on the beaches of Hawaii, that's a vacation for 99% of the population. That's my job. That's your job, to travel around the world. That's you working. And I definitely say the air quotes. There's a lot of fucking work that goes into it. But one thing that you mentioned that kind of, before I forget it, you know, if you had to count how many people came up to you and said, man, you have the dream job, you're the luckiest guy ever, or something along the lines of, it's all luck. You're lucky. You're lucky.
I hate that.
And I'm like, fuck you. And I've learned to say, you know, hey, you know, thanks. Because now, and I don't want to have a debate, or I don't want to whatever. I'm like, hey, thanks so much. And then I just want to get away from that person, because it's me wanting to be away from just weird energy. And when someone doesn't have any respect for, or they can't see that hard work, you know what I mean? That's a sign to me that they don't see the hard work in other people. And the conversations are just gonna be awkward from that point, you know?
Well, for me, the way that I handle that a little bit differently. So I get the same kind of thing. Hey, man, can I be an assistant on your shoot? I want to hold this so I can see all the stuff you're seeing, like stuff like that all the time. And I might do a slight little eye roll, but the other part of me is, like we've heard throughout this podcast, I want to educate people. So for me, I do try to take that moment to educate them on a couple different things. And even if it's subliminally, so I'll go, hey, it's not luck, man. I just took advantage of the opportunities and kept pushing and working hard through it. And it led to this. Like, I'll say something along those lines.
If I ever said fuck you to you after you said that to me, the whole, yeah, you must be lucky, just pretend that I said what Danny said. Because he says it with like adultist words.
Politically correct.
Yeah. I don't.
I mean, for me, though, it is important, though, man, because some of these people do maybe envision themselves as doing something similar. And again, you got to understand, too, just because I'm usually posting females on my Instagram, it's because that does bring a lot of engagement. That does, and whether it's certain eyes that I don't necessarily want on that engagement, or whether it's just because other photographers that are shooting that kind of stuff, that's great. But for me, I shoot so many different things from a client perspective.
Yeah.
And I just don't post all those things on Instagram. And we all believe Instagram is like everything for everybody. It's the real world. That's everything we shoot. There's lots of stuff we don't post on there. But I take that moment to help them understand that even in the short time frame I have with them, you don't understand like all the pivot points that came up in my life and that would come up in your life if you attempted to go through this career or take this path. I can look back on times when I was doing the freelancing web development and I wanted to start jumping into photography, so I was losing money on the freelance side here and then had to get a real part-time job. And that real part-time job allowed me to still do my passion after hours. Even though I wasn't making a ton of money because it was just a part-time job, I could still go home and put a little bit more effort towards this photography thing. I remember the people that I met along those ways. Now that I look back, you know, coming out of the part-time job with the guy I just met at that part-time job and us looking at each other and going, dude, I think we can do something else besides being here. And we go like have this little glisten in our eyes. We're both entrepreneurs. His name's Wes Bayerka, by the way. I'm talking about a specific person. And me and him built up a marketing agency that included me as a web developer and a photographer. But because of that point where we both had to take a step back and go, shit, we need a part-time job to make this happen in our lives with whatever's going on, his rent in his apartment, me having a car, whatever it was, that led to us meeting. That led to our next point where we got our next client. Him quitting his job and me quitting my job and being able to work out of an apartment for a year without having an office that we had to rent out so we could save money to continue to build up the business, to then realizing that photography was more the direction I wanted to go and he still wanted to be in the business part of the marketing thing, cutting paths and, you know, meeting back up later on to actually come up with projects together. Like all these things, that's just one person. There's 13 people I'm leaving out that have pivoted across all of this and created these opportunities that I could have either taken advantage of or been like, nah, I don't think I'm ready. And when somebody says luck, I try to I try to make them understand that each of us has these opportunities that we can either take or not be ready for. And what I just happened to do was, when I wasn't ready for it, go, screw it, I'm going to figure it out. And if I was ready for it, I was like, damn, this is happening at the right time, which would people would say is luck. I just look at it as opportunity that I took advantage of and I was ready for every time.
You have a really positive outlook, Danny.
Your
outlook is as positive as your dancing skills. I will say that.
But you just said I can't dance, man.
Well, no, I said that you can dance your ass off. I said your twerking skills are amazing. You know, I think I try to surround myself with as many people that can add on to what I want in life. And what I want is, I want more people to do what they want to do. You know, so I don't multitask. At a shoot, I multitask really well, you know, but outside of that, there's only one thing in my brain. You know, right now it's podcasting. And photography is like photography, podcasting. They're kind of merged.
Yes.
One of the things that I say to a lot of people in the group is, what you do today determines what you do tomorrow. Who you shoot today determines what you do tomorrow. So when you mentioned, you know, one person that came into contact with you and from that led to this and this and this, it's so very key to take advantage of every opportunity that is placed in front of you. And whether that's a shoot with that person or doing that kind of shoot or this or that, it's really important to just maintain action. And I think a lot of people, they're content with sitting back and hoping that things happen without being proactive. I'm not talking about you. I'm just saying. But the thing that I found is that, you know, I used to want the best for everybody. I used to want to, I don't want to use the word help other people, you know, kind of relating to when you want to try to educate somebody else, if they use the word luck, you know. I used to want to give my opinion to everybody. You know, Cal over in Maui Cal?
Yes.
Amazing creative, but he's one that taught me this phrase that I applied to my business today. We had a group of people, and we'd put up images from, you know, a lot of different creatives around. Super nice guy. And we'd give an opportunity for some feedback. And every time he gave feedback, he would say, yeah, man, that's really nice. I like it. That's good. And he would be a little bit more, you know, he would say, yeah, the lighting's really nice. Yeah, I love the pose. And I was of the mindset, no, that's bullshit, man. Tell him your composition sucks, you know, and this and that. You know, I want you to be better. So I'm going to tell you flat out, the lighting, it should have been lowered about a foot, and I'll tell you why. And this, and move that light off to the right a little more. And I would give my feedback and my desire to help educate people. And 95% of people would get offended. And they'd say, wow, I thought it was a nice picture. Then why'd you submit it for a critique, you know? And then I asked Cal, I said, hey, how come you give these bullshit answers? How come you always say these nice things, you know? And he said, you have to earn my feedback. You have to earn, basically you have to prove that for me to give my energy to you, you're deserving of my time. And a lot of people just want to hear, nice job. And when I factor that in, I would tell people, you know, because I'd get a lot of messages, I'm sure you do too, and people would say, hey, will you critique my work? I used to just say, you know, hey, I've got a coaching group, you know, because I want to be polite. But then I started getting into the habit of saying, no, I love it, man. Great job. You did good. And it's true, you know, but I chose to not give what I normally would do, which is to give my true opinion, because then it would lead to people saying, you're a fucking dick, you know? And once I changed that, you know, the energy changed. And so that's me not trying to educate everybody. And then I said, you know, for those who are obsessed, you know, I do have a coaching group. You know, if you want that blunt, honest feedback, it's going to cost, because when you have skin in the game, you're going to take it more seriously. But you're going to be around others who are also wanting that blunt, honest feedback, because you want to see growth. And I think most people, at least in my experience, people that would always say, Brett, you're so lucky. I look at it through the eyes of, I don't know if there's anything that I could do or say if I were to educate them, to say, hey, well, you know, let me tell you a little bit more about how that phrase is, you know, offensive or whatever. They would still say I'm an asshole if I say that.
I mean, it's possible. You can't change how people think about certain things. I'm even people that are just assholes to me all the time, or that treat my work as if it could have been done differently or better or whatever it is, I just try to, or give me the whole luck thing, like, man, why you? Why are you in this position where you get to go travel around and do all this stuff?
You get those kind of emails?
I get those comments, so they're more public, and that is even more ridiculous of a person, I think, who has the ability to do something like that. Most of the DMs these days are, how did you do this, or how did you do that, or can you send me that video? I would love to learn that too. And like you, I'm directing them to a place where they can pay for me to literally spend my time guiding them and correcting them and producing custom videos, because I do that now. A lot of the digital age has allowed me to provide more of my teaching instead of flying to everybody every week. That's literally what I used to do. I would fly to a city, and for 5 days I would teach one person every single day, side by side next to them, which hurt my body, man. That's a lot of work in itself. But people learn better like that. And when they do put that skin in the game, when they put that money in the game, they go, okay, I'm here to learn. There's no laziness associated with that. They have to work. We have to get that muscle memory. I'm literally my arm around them, showing them what to do, showing them what I'm seeing. And that provides them with an opportunity to go, holy shit, my little, I don't know, man, Canon Rebel just did that. And all because I had that 3-foot softbox right there. And this is the stuff I hadn't wanted to learn in 2 years, or my college wouldn't teach me. And I just learned more in these 4 hours than I ever did in that book. Yeah. Or those YouTube videos that I watched 17 times because they never did it. And now that I'm forcing you to get past that point where you have to like get in front of this model and make decisions and make this happen, you're making it happen. So when it comes to the photography teaching, I think it's the same thing for me, man, when I'm helping people to understand from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, this takes time. It takes money. It takes you putting yourself in situations you wouldn't thought yourself to be in, even if you're not ready for them, and pushing through whatever walls you have. You know, whether it's time because you have kids, whether it's you haven't shot for very long, so you feel like you're just a novice, and you know, whatever it is. Which, by the way, man, you mentioned something. I think you mentioned something earlier about our camera equipment improving over time, making it really easier, I guess, for people to jump into the game. I recently got into film photography, and I got my Nikon F3, which is manual focus, and you never realize how amazing autofocus is, man, until you're attempting to have a person who's shifting back and forth, moving left and right, and you're attempting to get focus with that manual focus, and it happening. They have to stay extremely still. They have to close their eyes, keep their eyes open, don't blink so I can see where this focus. Man, it's ridiculous. So there's definitely a lot of improvements to our lives that have helped out with that. I just had to get that out before we keep moving so I didn't forget, because people don't understand, man. I felt like a novice when I pulled that thing out. Yeah. I pulled that sucker out and I was like, okay, hold still, wait, this is, oh well, click, you know, and you don't know.
Technology, before I got my first mirrorless, which was not very many years ago, I never had a sharp image. Never. I had the Canon 5D Mark II, Mark III, Mark IV. So the Mark IV is the one that I used primarily as my career camera, you know, a badass camera. I compare that image to, I got the EOS R, which was the base model for the mirrorless. And when I took my first image with the R, I started cussing. I'm like, GD. Not only is this the first time that my image has been crisp because of this stupid eye focus, now the skin looks completely different, because to edit clear skin is nowhere the same as editing fuzzy skin. And I edited fuzzy skin all my career, and it was awesome. Now I see pores. Now I have to fix every single blemish. And I'm like, holy cow, I want to go back to the way things were. You know, mirrorless technology has gotten insane.
It is crazy, man. I mean, I started with my Z7, which is Nikon's first mirrorless like jump in. I mean, Sony had been doing it for a long time, and then Canon and Nikon kind of came in later. I think Nikon was last to come into the game, which was so heart-wrenching for me, by the way, man, because you have all these Sony shooters, alpha shooters, like running around going, look what we can do, look at all this cool stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm on my D850, like big old DSLR, giving me freaking arthritis, going, when can I do this too? And video was never a thing for Nikon shooters until now. Yeah. Right? Because we're using these lenses that are going and trying to get focus on stuff. In video, that's not going to work. And so mirrorless for me, since you mentioned that, the move for me wasn't necessarily for sharp images. It was for moving over into hybrid, being able to shoot video and photo because clients are asking for that. Right. So I have to figure out a way to do that now with a system that I love or want to use, or switch, which there was many key points, man, where I almost made that B&H purchase and was like, all right, let me take that Sony now and get that and sell my Nikon.
How can we say it's Sony, not Canon, by the way? I don't care because there's...
Well, here's the thing, man. I think you and me both can agree that like that they've built, Sony itself has built this amazing like machine that shows a community of shooters.
That is definitely true. Yeah.
And that is something that I've tried to like, I'm like the last Mohican with Nikon, man. Like I'm like trying to show people that I'm not just shooting owls and eagles in flight over like a Canadian lake. Right. I'm not just shooting astronomy in Joshua Tree. Like I'm shooting actual individuals and the camera can hold up and these are the things I put it through and the water that's splashing on it. And like I'm in there doing this stuff. I'm not climbing skyscrapers and hanging off the building because my own personal safety, but you get a lot of these alpha shooters, Sony shooters doing that. And that looks really appetizing to up and coming shooters. Right. And so these companies like I think Canon and Nikon both could improve their ability to create these communities that really help people to go, damn, I want to be a part of that. Damn, photography looks amazing and fun. Damn, photography is something that could take me somewhere. And I think, especially Nikon, I can say this for them, man, they're really stuck in the traditional way of the, you know, these bird shooters and these astronomy shooters. And we don't see a lot of them doing amazing, cool, fun things that, you know, people younger than us would want to get into. But mirrorless for me, man, was getting out of shooting that DSLR, my hand being too small for these big ass cameras, and being able to now have focus points across my entire sensor where I don't have to recompose my shot from the center focus points. I can see what I'm shooting before I shoot it with the electronic viewfinder. Like that stuff to me was, I didn't feel like I needed it. I was like, I don't need that, whatever, you guys, I'm making amazing shots with this. And then eventually when I got it, I was like, damn it, like this could have been a little bit easier for me with these extra tools and some of the shoots I had shot in the previous, in my history. So from a photography standpoint, man, I'm loving it, and I can't wait for the new one. Z8 is supposed to come out soon.
I don't even know what that means. Z8. Yeah, the nice thing about gear is it can definitely make your job a lot easier. But I've for the longest time I've always said that if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. One, because you can't, so there's no point in dreaming. But every single time that I took a crappy shot, it made me one crappy shot better. And you've got to take 1,000, 1,000,000, 1 billion shitty shots. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's social media that makes people want to believe that perfection is the expectation.
I think social media, man, definitely has made some like people believe that this is like bangers. That's a word that I hate with all my heart, right? I don't go into a shoot to create the most beautiful banger of a shot, and that's that one photo. But social media and definitely the way people perceive any photographer or any person that posts, especially models, obviously Facetune and thing, this helps that like whole beauty perspective be this, it's this perfect thing. This is what everybody needs to look like. This is the kind of way it should be. Social media has definitely like shifted a lot of people's perspectives, even mine, even though I fight it so hard and try to show so much of the opposite side of that. When it comes to, for example, beauty and perfection in lighting. So for a long time, my entire goal was beautifully light the whole face in the way that it needs to be lit. And that whole thing better be lit. And, oh, we didn't get down to the bottom half of the body because we're using a 3-foot octabox. Let me build that up so that's all there too. And this was for years, man. If you scroll down my Instagram, my social media, when I started 2012 or 2009 or whatever it was, and you look at the photos, you'll see my progression. You mentioned evolving throughout the years and growing as we're doing all this. You'll see the most ridiculous things that I've done in my career. I mean, we're talking about super smooth faces that you make fun of, right, that have overly done. You're talking about completely lit faces without any shadows. You're talking about all this kind of stuff. I don't think people scroll that far down, but you'll see the evolving in the color, the evolving in the perfection, the realization that some of the things that aren't as perfect start to look more beautiful and interesting from a photography standpoint or from like a visual standpoint to engage the viewer and create interesting, I don't know, man, stories with what you're seeing versus lighting everything to perfection. So the beauty side of stuff, this idea that everything has to be perfect, definitely social media has created that. But I'm starting to see a shift. This includes with film photography, going back to more of a nostalgic kind of shooting, getting more to that idea of how that feels, shooting in more natural light or using interesting lighting modifiers to create light that is just not perfect all the time. Right. I'm starting to see a lot of that, and that's coming through in a lot of commercial photographers, editorial photographers, and just videography in general, this whole cinematic thing. So I think there's a whole shift happening, which is, you know, all these like curves and jumps and bumps in what we do as our career, but it's happening, and social media is making that shift and helping that shift happen faster, I think, from what I see.
When are you going to start a podcast?
That's today, man.
No, when are you going to start your own podcast?
I haven't ever thought about that, honestly, man. For me, it's more about, well, I'll tell you this. So one of the things that I do when it comes to teaching in my videos is I'm never really in the videos as far as like talking head.
Yeah.
And a reason for that, man, is because I want to be in my underwear being able to teach. Like, I don't want to have to be perfect or look like a certain way or like have this lighting be exactly how it should be when I'm teaching. I want to get you to the point. So for me, I feel like podcast, which I saw today, is a lot of this setup and kind of like prepping, making sure everything looks good. And to me, I'm more about, I have very limited time. I'm working with a lot of different clients. We're doing a lot of different shoots. I want to still be able to teach while making this happen. How can I do that in the most efficient way? I can't be on camera. I can't have my mic set up a certain way. I just need to give you the information in a way that I think is helpful. And so I think podcast is more in that vein. It's like creating a perfect YouTube video. I'd rather create a not so perfect video that's a screen recording of stuff that you need to learn, besides making sure everything's set up perfect and sounding excellent. It's hard for me, man, to start including that on top of everything I'm already doing.
Well, this setup's a little bit special. I mean, we tend to go a little bit overboard with certain things.
It looks great.
It's not exactly the way I wanted it, because I wanted to have like a big TV back here with splashing your pictures on it, and wanted to have, you know, people serving you drinks and stuff like that. But
are we in a casino? Like,
yeah, well, you know, the whole sound of chips and everything. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing about podcasting, what I've gotten from today is you are an old man. You have a lot of knowledge that if you were to talk to somebody and start, you know, from point A to point B, and just start sharing all the knowledge that you've accumulated over the last 20 years, it would take years before you would stop, because there's so many things. And then you say, oh yeah, and that reminded me of this. Oh, and then that, and then, hey, you know, looking at that sign, it reminds me of this time that I did this and this and this. You know, and when you are in a limited time one-on-one session, your goal is to, I'm going to show you how to take a picture of that bottle of water. And then it's about that. So it's all the information you know about that water, but it's neglecting the info about this and that and this and this, and then textures. The thing about podcasting is, as you talk to different people, podcasting is super trendy right now. Super trendy. So that's probably the reason why
I've noticed.
It's about sharing the important information for the next generation. Because I think there comes a certain time where whatever you give to an individual during a one-on-one, it might benefit that one person or it might not. Depends on how lazy they are or how motivated or driven. Some people absorb info like a sponge, and they will take it and run. I've got a lot of people that have done amazing things with the information that they've collected. But there's a lot of people that just need that one thing that you say, you know? It's just like what you listen to today is going to determine how your day goes tomorrow. And you have a lot of the old man wisdom. You're the reminder that, yes, things can move fast if you move faster. Things can grow as long as you continue to add fertilizer. And fertilizer smells like shit, because it is. But you have to add fertilizer for that beautiful flower to grow. And a lot of people say, ooh, hard work, study, read, print out stuff. You had to print stuff from a computer, you know? Okay, well, take a screenshot with your phone. And then bookmark the website, and then reference it and go back, and then find a mentor, invest in your growth, and ask people for feedback, you know? And a lot of people, they just expect that a message saying, hey, bro, how'd you like that? They think that that's enough. And their mindset is, that's all I need to do. Just ask people a question, and they've got to answer me because I'm a follower, you know? You're the reminder saying, do more. Because what you see today was not just from what I learned today. This is from 20 years of growth. And, you know, like going through your old work and seeing, you know, this perfectly smooth faces, you know, you have to go through those phases where you do suck really bad, you know? And it's a reminder that when you suck, when you can look at old stuff now from 20 years ago, and you're like, God, that was horrible. But there are people that wanted that at the time. And so it taught you how to engage with clients. And so that's a business lesson. And then it also taught you how to deal with the 80% of people that said, that's gross. So it taught you how to deal with rejection, which you need to know as a professional. No matter how good you are, there are going to be people that say, no way are you worth that.
I think one thing, too, that kind of came up from what you just mentioned is the laziness of people. But also, I think a lot of people now really expect the clients to fall in their lap. just from whatever quality of work they're producing now.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed in my career, and anybody that I've taught that's taken this and ran with it, is you have to go and grab those people, those clients, those people that you want to work with, to make yourself grow past a certain point that you're at right now, but also to start building that career. And I talk about it a lot from a career standpoint because that's what I've turned photography into for me. I find a lot of people have a hard time realizing that they have to go send 100 DMs, get 99 no's and a yes to be able to move to the next step. And it goes back to the rejection you just mentioned, not wanting to see those 99 no's, whether they happen in the first 99 or whether that's 50 and then a yes and then 50 more. And you're going, damn, but I thought I just got why are these people saying no to me? There's no way. It's going to be like that. And so there's a lot of times where I have to help show people that you have to go and grab it. I'm teaching people how to write emails that actually can convert with people they want to maybe just shoot for free. Like I'm showing them how I started in my career so that I could help them see, hey, I didn't just become a luxury real estate photographer one day because I had an amazing portfolio that just landed in my lap and then somebody wrote me. I actually walked into a luxury home that was for sale, a model home, and lied to the sales rep and said, hey, the developer wants me to come shoot some of these photos for them, shot like the living room, master bedroom, and like a bathroom, and sent those to the developer and go, hey, I happened to be in your house today, and I just like learned on YouTube a certain lighting technique the night before. Send it to them, and then they go, oh, that's awesome. We just lost our photographer. Can you shoot with like, and there's that luck again. Yeah. There's that luck.
Right.
But that wasn't luck, man. That was me literally taking one day the day before and going, I'm going to sit and learn this shit. Cool. I think I know what I'm doing based on previous things that I've problem solved. Cool. What house can I go into to make this happen? Let me see if I can do this. Nervous. Not sure if I can make it happen. How much time do I have left? Let me just try to make sure I'm doing this with a speed light. No power whatsoever in a speed light, like making this happen. The photos sucked, by the way, Brett. I look back at them now and I'm like, well, how could they ever even trust me with the next house? You know what I mean? But my ability to talk with them, communicate with them, problem solve with them, take that initiative got me lucky and gave me that opportunity. And then from then on, I was a luxury real estate photographer getting paid to learn, by the way, which happened in all the industries that I shot. There was some opportunity I took advantage of, shot it for free, figured it out, and then took more opportunities and more advantages. So if there's anything I can say that relates to that and that also helps people out to grow, you can't wait. You literally can't wait. If you have an idea and you want to do something, and you have an ability to try to figure out an opportunity that's going to get you there, don't wait for somebody to contact you. I see a lot of people going, my work looks excellent. My work is great. Why am I not getting likes and follows? My work looks excellent. My work looks great. Why am I not getting clients? And then meanwhile, they're a starving artist that's not sure if they want to shoot anymore. I'm going to hang my camera up. I can't do this anymore. I mean, what did you get into it for? If this is what you believe in and what you want, go take that initiative and make this happen. And these are some ways I've done it. Now, how can you do it, right? One of the things, by the way, is the fitness photography realm. I know a lot of people that are like, trainers that also want to do photography. And they go, I just don't know what to shoot or how I'm going to do it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this is too obvious. Like, I have no ins in a gym or a fitness photography world. You deal with people every day. Yeah. Why not figure out some method or some way where you can help document the progress of your clients and learn photography and lighting with them as well? And then all of a sudden, I guarantee you, with that work that you do there, if you start pushing that out to anybody else, you're going to get paying clients. You may even get them popping up because they see your work on Instagram or social media. But if you just push that out and use that in as an opportunity, you win. I don't have that in. I had an in with freelance web development. Now we have websites that require photography. Let me take that opportunity. That was my in. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I see a lot of that, man. There's so many different ways I can like weave that, but taking those opportunities, figuring out what exists for you, making more happen based on what you already have going on for yourself, and taking that initiative and making it happen have always worked for me. Even with the 99 no's that didn't work. Right. You know what I mean? And that one that worked. And that is still a win. I've never looked at the other 99 and go, damn it, I'm a failure.
You know, I think one thing that can help, if you are at home and you are a creative that's trying to get into the creative space, and if you have a passion and it's something that you clearly define as a passion and you're obsessed about it, the reality is you can take the path of learning everything on your own. You can study YouTube every single day, but as was mentioned today, if you see it and see it and see it without actually trying it, you're just going to have another video that you have seen. You know, you've got to... You know, it's tell, show, do, review. You know, have someone tell you what's going on, have them show you, and then you have to do it. And then get that feedback on whether or not it was a good thing or bad. I suggest anybody that is interested in the creative space as a career or just as a hobby that you can monetize off of, contact Danny because he does have a coaching program, or he does have, a way to get info straight from the horse's mouth, which is really key. You get there's a shit ton of info on YouTube, but it's stuff that people kind of pick and choose what they're going to tell you. If you go into photography courses in college, you're going to learn how to use a camera, but you're not going to learn how to have those discussions with a real estate person showing a house, and you know what to say to. He didn't lie to anybody. He's not suggesting that you lie. But the tips and tricks on how to get ahead in this industry, and it's really using the word initiative, and I think that's the biggest thing. I've always thought of Danny as one of the premier educators in the industry. He's one that he's leading by example, and the thing I love most about him, just to kind of summarize all this stuff, you want to align yourself with people that are going to keep you in a positive mindset. And if you look at how he interacts and engages on social media, there's a lot of negativity on social media, as I'm sure everybody's aware. His responses to all of the negativity is always a positive response, which is one of the sexiest things. It's the second sexiest thing about him. His first thing is his twerking. Yes, It's imperative that you align yourself with other people that are going to continually bring out your best. And I can easily say without a doubt, when it comes to photography education, Danny is the best that I've seen. And I've been in the industry for a while. I see a lot of creatives, a lot of educators as well. If you want to learn, I'm not saying that's going to be fast, but if you want to learn how to see more options, how to see more potential, how to see the positive in everything, the positive is you get to do what you love to do more. There's nothing more positive than that. If that's something that you see yourself wanting to do it. Reach out to him. Send him a message. He will answer, and he'll actually tell you positive stuff in a politically correct way as opposed to what I do. He is the premier guy. Where can they find you? Where can they find information on all of your educational services?
Sure. So if for some reason, which I've heard this before, you are scared to write me, you can find all my tutorials and all the stuff that I'm adding on a weekly basis on DannyBatista.com/learn. There are 3 different programs in there. One is Bronze, which is free, which isn't actually a program. It just gives you details on what everybody else is learning. Silver is going to be $15 a month, and that allows you to see every single video I post all the time and stream it as much as you want. And then there's one that's $39 a month, which is Gold, which is actually the one that most people do because they actually get to ask me specific questions every single month on any specific topic they want. That can be, Danny, how do I use a 2-light setup and shoot outside in full sun? Danny, can you edit this photo of me that I took? I am a model/photographer that is an influencer that also likes to shoot his own photos for hotels that I go to. Can you show me what I would be doing to set up my media kit? Can you edit these and show me the retouching process you would go through? How would you use your retouching action to do this? That's huge because you're no longer doing the whole YouTube thing and just watching a video over and over again to hope you get it. I'm guiding you through it and you're having to follow along with me. And so people actually take my time and get my time with that. So DannyBatista.com/learn is where I do all my teaching now. I also do private one-to-ones, and I fly to people every single week in every single city. It doesn't matter what country or city you're in. I fly to you. I don't charge you for the flight. I don't charge you for the stay. I don't charge you for the rental car. It's only for the time period that we're working together. But obviously, feel free to write me, DM me, email me, and we can talk about anything that matters to you and figure out a curriculum that works to actually get you going where you want to go.
I appreciate you giving us your time, man. You have a ton of information that I hope you share while starting up your own podcast, because you do have that radio face. Oh, I meant radio voice. Abner's the radio face. Yeah, man, I appreciate all the time, and I hope I'm going to plant a seed. I know that you do a lot of overseas stuff. I see in the future, because this is about, what's the phrase? You have to envision what's going to happen.
Manifesting.
Manifesting. Man, I'm going to manifest with my man right here. Hawaii or Mexico or Bali or one of these. I know that you've been to all these places many times. I am going to manifest a photographer's retreat with you, myself, and whoever else wants to join. We're bringing in, I don't want to say models per se, people that enjoy photo shoots, people that enjoy photo shoots and photographers that love the creative process, videographers, whatever that may be, for a few days of building a community where we can talk about Canon being better than Nikon. I'm just kidding. You know, I've never used a Nikon, to be honest. It's a little bit too complicated for me. I'm a simple brain, so that's saying positive about Nikon. Where we talk about community and talk about creating and talk about business and just enjoy the company of others that are like-minded in this amazing creative space. So hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months, that's something that we can hopefully have details. I'm going to tell him that's going to happen. He has no choice. He's stuck. I'm going to find out where he's traveling to.
Let's try like 3 to 6 months, because I've also been thinking about the same thing and creating full workshop weeks in a location with individuals where it's easy for them to learn on a daily basis, not just a one-time thing. So if that is a plan that you have going on, I've already been thinking that. I was going to ask you about that after the podcast was over. So I appreciate you thinking about me for that. I'm ready to do that. I want people to learn this stuff, and I want to find a really amazing place where we can do that together.
That sounds like a horrible time. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to reach out to him on Instagram. His work is insane. So I appreciate you guys listening, and if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments below. And check us out on YouTube and Instagram and all those other platforms. Until next time, keep shooting.